my very own lightsaber.
Hi, my name is Pam. This is Total Pamarchy. This week I'm going to attempt to improve my lightsaber prop that I made by making a blade for it that will light up, hopefully. So we're gonna see how that's gonna go. I have pre-purchased a few things that I got when I bought the plumbing parts for the hilt. At the same time, I had gone on to Amazon and ordered some EL wire. Ooh. You could probably also use LED strips if you really wanted to. And I also got a fluorescent light protector. So this is a clear plastic tube. So I'm going to use this potentially. Or once upon a time, we had some family members, my parents, kindly donate, I think these are tubes that you would go into your golfing bag to hold your clubs. So they had donated a few of these to my husband, not for golfing, for crafting. And I might end up just using one of these because they're a little more opaque and I feel like that might be better. The clear one, I'm going to attempt to make this a little bit more opaque somehow, probably by making a mess with paint. So let's get into it.
You ever have one of those days where you're like, yes, let's make a giant mess on my floor? So I'm gonna go with fuchsia. So I'm just gonna pour it down the one end and turn it around a bunch of times and see what happens. I've run into a little bit of a snag. My idea of painting one of these fluorescent light bulb tubes, while seemed like a good idea and did color it, the paint had a hard time adhering to the inside after multiple coats and trying to dry it without the paint kind of pooling on one side, which didn't succeed at. We're left with sort of not a consistent covering on the inside of the tube. The other problem I ran into with that is that the EL wire I was noticing just wasn't bright enough for this purpose. So I'm gonna try something else, and that's okay. So I went out and I grabbed more tubes and some foam and a different kind of LED light strip. So I'm going to combine these things and see if we can get our lightsaber to still light up. So I'm just measuring and cutting the foam down to the size of this tube. So my hope is to use the foam as sort of a diffusion fabric inside the tube. So then I can add some LED lights to that and we can create our blade. I began by removing the LED dimmer switch. We ended up only needing the LED strip itself, so I cut the strip where indicated on the strip. I added solder to the 12-volt and R and B copper pads. The G, R, and B stand for the colors of the strips, green, red, and blue. I wanted my strip to light up fuchsia, so we are only going to use the R and B copper pads. If you wanted your strip to be green or blue, you would just use the G or B copper pads. I then soldered black wires to the R and B copper pads. And a red wire to the 12-volt copper pad. I then detached the power connectors so I could unplug the power source instead of using a switch. We had limited supplies, and if I did this project again, I would definitely plan the power aspect out a bit more ahead of time. Then I wrapped a black wire around the cathode, the negative terminal, and a red wire around the anode, positive terminal of a 9-volt battery.
I wrapped the battery and wires in electrical tape to hold it all together.
Ooh, look.
It's always good to try it every step of the way.
And we have light! I then soldered the battery to one of the connectors. And used heat shrink tubing that I slipped on ahead of time to cover the bare wires. After I wrapped the whole thing in more electrical tape, spoiler, I should have used white electrical tape. Off camera, I connected the LED strip to the other connector the same way and wrapped the exposed wires securely in electrical tape.
Moment of truth.
Yay!
Hooray! Suppose if my battery ever died,
We just
would replace it. So we could just unwrap all of this tape off of here, remove the wires that we've wrapped around the ends, and replace it with a new 9-volt battery. Now that I have my LEDs wired up, I'm gonna figure out how to attach them to this, which is going to be fairly simple. The backing of the LEDs has a adhesive on it, and we're going to use that to attach it to the foam, and then we're going to put it inside our tube to create the lightsaber blade that's going to light up, and then put it all together with our hilt that I made in last week's video. If you haven't checked that out, I'll link that up above so you can check that video out, and how to make a simple lightsaber hilt out of plumbing parts. So let's wrap this project up. So we've already cut our foam down to be the length of our tube. I also clean the inside of the tube. When you get them from the store, they are fairly dirty. I'll give myself a little bit of extra.
I peeled off the backing to the LED strip and attached it to the foam. Then attempted to shove it inside the tube, which didn't work very well.
Okay, so I've tied a bone folder to the end of my strip just to pull it through.
This worked much better. But I noticed when the LEDs were lit up, they faced one another, so I repositioned them so the back of the strip faced the back half of the other strip on the other side of the foam, if that makes any sense. Unfortunately, I then discovered nothing fit together properly.
I ran into a bit of a snag with the end of my lightsaber hilt that I had made. I would suggest if you're doing this, plan to incorporate batteries, or to be able to incorporate batteries into your hilt somehow. So I had extra plumbing pieces. I just made another end. I have a chunk of doweling in here. So thankfully this just kind of slips over that doweling on the top. Of For workaround for right now, this is what we're going to do. Though I have another end of tubing that I cut off in hopes that this can all fit inside, and so this just kind of slides over top. And my thought was this would make it snugger on the inside here. I changed my mind. I cut the end off this piece here and painted that. So I'm going to glue that together just to make the end of the lightsaber hilt a little bit longer so that this will fit inside a little bit better. After all of that, I think I might actually finally be done, or I'm at least feel like I'm done because I'm done with this. I've taken some of the black electrical tape and I've wrapped it with white electrical tape. I glued on with crazy glue another piece of plumbing that I cut down and painted just to make the end piece longer so everything would sit in the end here, because otherwise it wasn't long enough. I have another piece that I'm going to put around this to help it slide in there and stay in place, and I'm at that point of it's good enough. I think I'm going to glue this inside here. I ended up using hot glue later on. The crazy glue did not hold the pieces well enough, especially once paint was applied. And then I think maybe I'll just paint the end of this once this dries. And then our tube can slide down inside here. Then I painted the remaining piece and shoved it all together. I've never been happier to finally be done with a project, but she sure is pretty. This week was not without its challenges, but I did somehow manage to create my own lightsaber blade that lights up and goes inside the hilt that I designed from plumbing parts. I had to modify the hilt a little bit. I think if I ever did this project again, I would maybe plan it out a little bit better. Now that I know a little bit more about LEDs and electronics and how they're wired up and what I might need to wire up a project like this, I would definitely try to design the battery packs into the hilt. I had never worked with LEDs before, so that was all new for me. I think next time I definitely would do things differently, given the opportunity. We'll call this DIY Lightsaber Mark 1 or Prototype 1. And I'm sure next time we can do a lot better to create our own hardware store lightsaber. But for now, this one's complete. I hope you enjoyed this video and I've inspired you to go out and make your own DIY hardware lightsaber today. My name is Pam. This is Total Pamarchy. Until next time, bye.